If you were born in 2001 and grew up watching the Dakar, your entire adolescence would be marked by one brand, KTM.
You getting out of your diapers, learning to walk, to talk, making your first friends, first time getting bullied, your first high school crush. So many things happen in the life of an 18-year-old, but one would remain constant. Every dawn of the year, the orange-blooded team would conquer the Dakar, again and again and again.
But every fairy tale has to have an ending, and for KTM, the tide started shifting with the start of the decade.
It's hard to look at Honda as an underdog, as the up-and-coming machine, but for a good number of years, they were just that, the runner-up.
The hunter that could never catch its prey, and yet, in 2020, many things changed in the rallying world, and Honda was given another lifeline.
So, was it the Dakar rule overhaul? Was it the navigation changes, the new stage types, the roster of riders, their new bike? Only one way to find out, and it all started on the 1st of January 2020.
Well, the 25 elite riders gathered early on Sunday to kick off Dakar 2020.
Stage 1 of the Dakar saw a promising start for the Japanese manufacturer, with Ricky Brabec ending up second fastest on the special stage. But they were far from being the favorites. That title went to Toby Price.
KTM as ever in the hunt as they go in search of a 19th straight title.
Look, in 2020, if you were to put your money on someone, it kinda had to be Toby. And with the first stage, he smashed the competition with the fastest time of the day.
But that was a bit of a problem. You see, Toby's paper roadbook got ripped in the middle of the stage,
forcing the Aussie to stop and repair it trackside.
The Aussie got into a spot of bother with his roadbook, which ripped at one point.
And that made him push a bit harder to recover the time. But he never wanted to get first place so early. I know this sounds counterintuitive. It is a race after all. But in Dakar, sometimes it's worth sacrificing the first position in order to gain a competitive start on the following day. And that was Toby's original plan.
Finishing first in this stage meant that the second, longer one would have him start first. And that, especially in 2020, was a pretty big handicap.
Now, defending champion Toby Price admitted he didn't really intend to win yesterday's opener because it was never going to be easy to open the piste.
The second stage saw Ricky Brabec, the Honda rider, snatch 5th place, taking him to the same position in the overall leaderboard. But this stage was special, a day with many firsts for the Dakar Rally.
Not only did they get the roadbook just 25 minutes before the stage start, this was also part 1 of the super marathon stage.
Looking back to 2020, from a lot of points of view, Dakar was entering a new chapter, offering competing teams a clean slate.
First things first, the environment of the rally moved from South America to Saudi Arabia. A choice that was criticized by many because of political and social reasons, but a choice that brought a fresh new terrain into the mix. Massive dunes combined with minefields of rocks started dominating the landscape. But even more importantly, the navigation side of things got a big overhaul. The first thing ASO did was started printing colored paper roadbooks, already marked with a standardized color scheme.
The reason behind this, for half the rally stages, they would start distributing the roadbooks just 25 minutes ahead of the start. What this meant was that riders had no time to mark their roadbooks ahead of the special stage. But at the top level, marking a roadbook wasn't trivial. Teams had employed mapmen, people tasked to read and understand the roadbook, to project and simulate it on a real-life map, and add important notes, and sometimes even find shortcuts for them to take. This would take multiple dedicated men all night before the stage, but it gave the factory guys a huge advantage. But now, since roadbooks were only given 25 minutes ahead of the start, all that advantage was taken away. Leave a comment down below if you want to see a video going deeper into the mapman situation, since it's a truly fascinating side of Dakar that I bet most people don't really know about.
The new rule changes seemed to suit the Japanese manufacturer really well, coming in first and second with Nacho Corneo and Ricky Brabec.
Winner Ricky Brabec, a Honda 1-2-3. No American has ever won the Dakar, but if he keeps going like this, the former BMX star could well make history.
This also meant that the American would take the overall lead of the race. But more than that, after just 3 stages, Honda had 4 bikes inside the top 5. And this stomping continued into stage 4, the Japanese manufacturer consistently hitting top 5 finishes. At the start of the rally, Honda looked like a cohesive, experienced team, like a team that really knew what they were doing.
But this wasn't always the case. Ever since their comeback, Honda went through a lot of troubles over the years. The thing is, their last participation happened back in 1995 when they registered a prototype 2-stroke into the rally, the EXP2.
This was a revolutionary motorcycle using previously unheard of engine technology, and I'd love to cover it one of these days in a video. But the point is, between 1995 and 2013, Honda completely ignored the rallying world.
They just stopped and people caught up and overtook them.
And so, in 2013, Taiichi Honda, a young Japanese engineer, was tasked with bringing the Dakar's glory back to the land of the rising sun. Honda had the experience, the resources, so you'd expect them to do well. Yet they didn't. The thing is, rallying evolved and changed drastically, and Honda wasn't expecting that. In 2013, when the HRC Honda team came about, they only had 3 riders representing them. That year, their bikes were plagued with fueling issues, causing them to abandon.
Look, back in the 90s, the Dakar was a bit of a marathon, riders having to nurture their bikes to the finish line. But in the 2010s, that was no longer the case.
Every day was its own sprint. And so, the approach of having a small roster was tricky, since any crash or bike breakdown would effectively mean the end of the road to Dakar's first place.
But also, Honda did a bunch of silly mistakes in their initial years. Small, stupid stuff that incurred big penalties, like refueling in a forbidden area. A mistake so easy to avoid, yet a mistake that happened. And a mistake that shouldn't be admissible when talking about the factory race team.
Along the years, the Japanese kept improving, and in 2014 they came back with 5 riders at the start line. In 2015, Paulo Gonçalves reaches 2nd, Honda's best modern-day finish. In 2017, Monster Energy comes in as title sponsor, and just 1 year later, Kevin Benavides comes in 2nd for the Japanese manufacturer. 2019 brought them even closer, with Ricky Brabec leading the rally until his engine gave up on stage 8. It took Honda 8 full years to improve, to learn, to perfect their efforts. 8 painfully long years. And in 2020, the pieces of the puzzle finally looked like we're going to fit.
As stage 5 was approaching, it looked like the Austrians got their mojo back. Toby Price went on to win the stage and was looking like KTM's most fierce rider.
Unfortunately for them, just 1 day later, Toby blew his rear tire, losing another 16 minutes. Husqvarna rider Andrew Short stopped by and swapped wheels with Toby, but still, a large amount of time was lost that day.
But look at this, Andrew Short finishing the stage without a rear tyre.
Yeah, for me I had a really good day going until like 4:20, and then I just had to be a team player, and so it was a long ride in the desert.
And to make things worse for KTM, Ricky Brabec and his Honda went on to win stage number 6, solidifying his overall result. But everything was not all sunshine and roses for the Japanese manufacturer, as Kevin Benavides blows up his engine and loses 3 hours. One of their top riders, one of the main contenders for the title, was effectively out of the race.
A broken engine costing the Argentine over 3 hours and robbing him of any chance of overall victory.
You see, Honda having bike problems was actually not something new. Ever since their 2013 debut, their dirt bike offering suffered a lot of changes.
Despite Honda's bulletproof reputation, when it comes to Dakar, they were quite far from it. Back then, they introduced the CRF 450 Rally, which looked good, but in reality was basically a CRF 450X that had been converted to a rally bike. Bigger tanks, a nav tower, the usual conversion kits that other privateer teams were more or less already doing. And in fact, Honda announced that these conversion kits would become available for privateers to buy themselves. What this showed was that, for 2013, Honda's machine was merely a converted enduro bike. And it didn't take them long to learn the lesson that KTM had learned years ago. An enduro bike was simply not good enough. Good to finish the rally, sure, but for winning the Dakar, it was far from ideal.
At this moment, I think Taichi Honda realized the vastness of the challenge that laid ahead. This band-aid they worked on was never going to be good enough to beat the decades of dedicated development that the Austrians had been through.
And so, for 2014, they had to change their approach. Radically. That year, Honda's bike got a new power unit, a double overhead cam valve train that was completely different from their other competition motocross and enduro bikes. They modified the stock chassis and completely replaced the rear subframe with a carbon monocoque unit. They gave the motorcycle a longer wheelbase for an extended swing arm to aid its stability on the high-speed sections. All of this made the new incarnation of the bike 10 kilograms lighter, a huge difference in the world of off-road racing.
And the innovations did not stop there. For the first time on a desert racer, the CRF 450 Rally got a much-needed electronic aid: traction control.
Now, don't think this acted as our street bikes do, because its purpose was not to save a rider from a high side. No, this was meant to aid the performance of the motorcycle on the marathon stages. You see, by engaging TC, the motorcycle would spin the rear wheel less,
thus consuming less of the tires. And in a joint stage where tire changes are made illegal, that can make a big difference in the long run.
For 2015, the Japanese went all out with their electronics package, including throttle-by-wire and a more precise version of their existing traction control system. But this decision backfired. That year, Joan Barrera was leading the rally when saltwater entered the connections of his Honda and left him stranded on the side of the road. Honda had made 2 steps forward, but forgot about the rowdiness of this rally, and that took them 1 step back.
For 2016, semi-active suspension was introduced on some of their bikes, using components that would adapt themselves depending on the terrain.
To be fair, this experiment didn't last long, as the idea was dropped just 2 years later. Still, what this tells me is that Honda took it seriously, and was finally allowing themselves to experiment, to try and push the boundaries of the sport in order to catch KTM.
Sure, it didn't always work. But in retrospect, it didn't have to. In such a sport, not moving forwards is effectively moving backwards, so any effort in the right direction has to be appreciated.
The years before 2020, Honda tried really hard to improve their CRF's reliability and serviceability. They redesigned parts to be more accessible, redundant, sturdier. They kept on improving the bike year by year. Even Taichi Honda, HRC's off-road race operation manager, said that throughout the years, the CRF 450 Rally has been simplified to make maintenance easier.
It's with a heavy heart that we begin with the tragic news that Paulo Gonçalves has died after crashing at kilometre 273 of today's 7th stage.
Ex-Honda and then current hero rider Paulo Gonçalves crashed and lost his life. That day will be remembered as a dark spot in the Dakar's history.
Unfortunately, another member of the bike's family has left us, and every time it's the same question. Is it worth competing? What's the point of it at all?
The first competitor to lose his life in the rally in over 5 years. You see, he was the man who almost brought Honda their first victory in the early days. Then, in 2017, Paulo had stopped next to Toby Price when the Aussie broke his leg in the middle of a stage.
This time, in 2020, the roles reversed, and Toby was the first man to arrive at the scene of the accident.
For 1.5 hours, he stood by his friend's side. At that point, the time didn't matter. Leaderboards didn't matter. Nothing else mattered. Sure, after the stage ended and Price got his lost time back, he only gave up a couple minutes to the Honda leader.
It's hard for me to believe that going through something like that, sitting next to your friend as his life is slowly draining away, doesn't leave a deep mark for the rest of the rally and your life.
The entire Dakar family came together to say farewell to one of their own, Paulo Gonçalves.
I remember him stopping for me in 2017 when I broke my leg in Dakar, and yeah, it was a bit of the right thing to do for him, and we helped get him into the helicopter, and at least I knew I was there for him, and yeah, tried to comfort him as much as possible, and then just thoughts and prayers go to his family and friends and everyone in Portugal. They lost a good warrior, that's for sure.
Stage 8 got cancelled in honor of Paulo's passing, but 9 and 10 were allowed to continue. And here, Pablo Quintanilla starts catching up to Brabec.
The American didn't win any of these days, but most importantly, he never lost much either.
It's a little hard to race after the tragedy, but you know what, the show has to go on, and we have to accept the fact that, you know, what's happened, and we must stay focused.
He was consistent, like a steam train slowly powering through everything in his path. And so, by the end of stage 10, roughly 20 minutes was separating Honda from their maiden win.
That year, Honda had nailed a lot of the requirements of winning the Dakar. They had the bike, the team, the strategy. All they needed was someone to put these all together. And they found that person in Ricky Brabec.
The American truly was the last piece of the puzzle. But who is he? Why is he so special? Born in 1991 in San Bernardino, California, Brabec's story actually started out by riding BMX. He was a stereotypical troublemaker kid. In fact, things got so bad, he got sent to military school in his early teens.
He was riding dirt bikes, but mostly casually with his family. The turning point came when Ricky turned 13, and his family moved to the desert.
That's when his desert racing story really began, and he started scraping by, gathering sponsors from wherever he could. $200 from here, 500 from there, anything he could to allow him to keep racing the dunes.
Like $200, and like we gotta sign up with that $200 and pay for gas and a hotel and food. So,
and it didn't take long for those investments to pan out. In 2014, he became the winner of the famous Baja 1000. He raced and dominated the Score International Series, the AMA Hare and Hound, best in the desert. Ricky became an unstoppable force in the sport of desert racing. And when he had won everything, he realized there was only one mountain left to climb. The Everest.
The only event that matters. The granddaddy.
The finale is Dakar.
They want you to go through the gnarliest of the gnarly, so they don't make it easy on you.
You see, the usual races Ricky had done were all taking place on marked courses. So the only thing a rider had to do was go as fast as he could. But as his friends introduced him to roadbook rallies, he quickly realized that the Dakar was way more complex than he had imagined. On his first time trying out a roadbook, he covered 80 miles in 8 hours. He was constantly getting lost, overshooting turns left and right. And then, in 2015, a possible career-defining crash took place. Ricky broke his C5 and C6 vertebrae, his collarbone and his hand. Ever since, his neck mobility never fully recovered. In fact, even to this day, looking up or down hurts.
I'm like, my eyes are up, and I'm like, still my neck mobility is not like it hurts to go there. And then like down, I can't look down that much. You just learn to live with it, you know? You learn to live with pain.
I was in high school watching the Dakar, but there was no way I would ever get there in my mind. But that dream was slowly becoming a reality. As his navigation skills got better and better, he started performing really well in international rallies.
And in 2019, just 1 year before, he was inches away from grabbing the Dakar title, from achieving his childhood dreams.
Until his Honda took that dream away from him, leaving him stranded with mechanical problems. Days like these can either make or break a future champion. There's only two options. Most people would just give up, take it as a sign and stop the efforts.
To tell you the truth, I don't know what happened. I just lost power to the bike and I don't know. I have no words. Dakar bites again.
After all those years of pushing yourself, the trophy gets stolen from underneath you. But for a handful of people, days like these make them stronger.
And Ricky now knew that winning the Dakar on his Honda was a real possibility. And he wasn't going to allow it to slip again. Just 14 minutes separated Ricky Brabec from Pablo Quintanilla, the Husky rider, at the start line. Ricky has everything to lose. Make any mistake in the desert, and 14 minutes can disappear in the blink of an eye. And, just as in the rest of the rally, Ricky made no mistake.
It's quite an accomplishment for America, for Honda, for the whole entire team.
Ricky Brabec won the 2020 Dakar Rally, the first North American to ever conquer the title in the bikes category, the first win for Honda in the modern era.
Thing is, Dakar involves a lot of luck, and in 2020, Honda finally got lucky enough. It's a part of the game that all riders and manufacturers have to play, and in 2020, they got everything right. Winning is the result of the balance of three elements: bike, team operations, and rider. These three factors need to match at the same time to accomplish a goal. 2013 saw the entrance of an arrogant new kid on the block. Honda expected to just show up and with their pedigree steal KTM's spotlight. And as big as their arrogance was, just as quickly did the world fall on top of their head.
They learned soon enough why it took the Austrians so long to get to dominating the sport. But they learned, year by year, the hard way. And together with Ricky Brabec, they managed to stop the Europeans after 18 long and grueling years.
A lot of planets had to align to make this work. The riders, the bikes, the logistics, strategy. But when they finally did it, they brought home a spectacular victory. The 18 years long win streak was never before heard of, but now was Honda's time. And ever since, the Japanese and the Austrians have been trading blows year after year after year.